Ekawamir Omo, Yakwe, Ali, Talofa. Hello, this is Laura here for the last in this series of Introduction to Customer Analysis. The cherry on top is this one, and it is case studies. Why an entire session on case studies? Because how my brain functions and how many brain functions is that through examples we remember better. And the brain is like an onion with many peels. You have to layer the content so that it can sink in and that we can understand it. And that's why we will go for case studies now. Alright, I will bring 3 case studies to you. One is the Songsa private island in Cambodia, which is a hotel on an island. And then 2 Taiwanese case studies. Since my only travel this year due to COVID has been in Taiwan, which is highly recommended to do so, I went to Green Island, Liu Dao, and Silk's place Taroko at Taroko Gorge in Taiwan. Let's roll, and let's start with Songsa Private Island. Songsa Private Island, I heard about it in a few luxury magazines, and why I'm talking about this is because Songsa Private Island has very well targeted its specific audience, and it's so relevant to pinpoint who you are targeting to attract those people and that they will flock at your premises. And that's what Songsa Private Island is doing in a sustainable way. It is in Cambodia. It's very remote. It takes a while to get there, and it's full on based on the island experience, and their marketing is get away from the world. The beautiful photos are also very much embodying far away from the world. It is a sustainable resort and it's focused on luxury ecotourism. It's all about the preservation of the surrounding Korong archipelago. And what the owners have envisioned is to make the hotel low impact, because I don't have to tell you, in the hospitality industry, but hotels in general have a very large ecological footprint with all the laundry they have, all the garbage on a daily basis. The premises have quite often a large kitchen, and there's just a lot that comes to do with it. So this island has focused on being low impact, eco-friendly, and the keywords they try to translate throughout the entire operations of the hotel is harmony, sustainability, and luxury. They make references to traditional fishing villages because that's the surroundings. They focused in the architecture on pitched roofs, which are based on traditional architecture, and open living spaces due to the climate and how the normal houses were built in that area. Very interesting, but the materials they used are recycled. So for example, the wood they use and the bamboo, quite often it's or recycled or refurbished from other places nearby. So it's locally or responsibly sourced. And they use local sandstone, minimizing the carbon impact of shipping heavy materials all over the globe. For example, if you buy Carrara marble from the Carrara marble mine in Italy and you put it on a boat and it has to ship all the way down Africa and then the Indian Ocean and then the Pacific Ocean, that's a very long way, and that's why they use local sandstone to minimize that carbon impact. So here you see the sandstone and the beautiful view. So each villa, those are overwater villas or overwater bungalows, each villa has recycled timber from discarded shipping boats from a nearby estuary. And the furniture they use is made from driftwood, handpicked from local beaches. And the flooring is salvaged timber from, for example, defunct factories, warehouses, demolition yards in Thailand and Cambodia. So here in the interior of the hotel, I told you it's a luxury hotel, you have all those elements, the wood, the sandstone they focus on, and then some artsy elements that come from local artisans and craftsmen. So I've read quite a few press releases on Songsa private island, and they really focused on engaging the local community and giving vocational trainings so that the local workers really acquire skills in depth that they can further use in their career, not only at the hotel, but if they at some point decide to leave there, that they can use those skills. They have throughout the hotel bespoke art. A professional photographer, for example, was commissioned to capture the nature and the personality of the islands, and then they printed it on canvas framed with wood from recycled finishing boards. I know it sounds too good to be true, but the hotel has won quite a few accolades and has been featured in lots of magazines as well. And I'm giving you this example because this really targets a specific market segment, and it's, if I'm honest, a market segment where I can find myself into as well. More and more global citizens try to be as conscious as possible, even though the most conscious option would be to stay home, of course. But with travel comes also a lot of other benefits, such as learning, experiencing, interacting, and all those things can be done, but in a sustainable way, in a way that the local community benefits from it, and that there is a support for the preservation of local traditions, local cuisine, local ingredients. So it's basically a win-win interaction, and that's why I want to share this example with you, because I've done lots of research on this, and this is really the future. In Europe, you see also a lot of sustainable, more upscale tourism, because it links the preservation of Earth's resources that are finite with preservation of culture, and also with pride for the land that you are visiting or the island that you're visiting, and a valorization of the traditional culture where you are as a guest. And I think that all brings added value to the world, where previous decades, they were focusing more in making it just one bland bowl of everything the same. And if you visit a certain type of resort or certain type of stay, bed and breakfast, hotel somewhere, and you go to the other side of the world, you find exactly the same thing. And this is more a movement that wants to counteract and balance that, and focus more on what are the meaningful and pleasant elements from the local surroundings, and how can we give them a valorization that they truly deserve, and how can we preserve them as well for the future in a very sensible way. The ornaments and decoration of these islands are made from natural materials by local artisans, and they use, for example, washed up bamboo roots at neighboring beaches. So here you see the fences here at this private villa. They are all from that type of wood, and it just gives a very overall pleasant aesthetic and atmosphere, since most people come from urban jungles or areas where nature is not that present, and to have all these natural materials surrounding and materials that are from the area, it creates a certain pleasant atmosphere that really appeals to people, and it makes people dream. And that's ultimately the goal. They have also scrutinized their processes and services to maximize efficiency and reduce waste. And this is a very important one since it's a remote island. The furnishings, for example, are made from quick-dry foam for outdoor use, and it will last a decade, 5 times longer than in most hotels. Here you see these chunky, fluffy sofa beds. They will last longer, and they are from quick-dry foam. Why as well? Because if you have that type of material, if you have to replace it every year, you need a shipping, you have all the transportation, and it's really not so sustainable, specifically because we're talking a remote island. You want to make it as sustainable as possible. They had thought it very true. So they made a very own purpose-built sewage and irrigation system. And due to the remoteness of Cambodia's islands and lack of infrastructure, this was needed. Why? You don't want any type of nasty nuisance pollution into the nearby pristine water that will affect the local communities, will affect local marine life, and will bring in toxicity to that area. So I think this is a very smart decision, and it's really well thought through of it, and it will bring the entire setting to a new level. No nasty sewage smell, because that's the last thing you want if you're in paradise. So I think this element is very meaningful and significant to showcase how well thought through the entire concept of this island is, focused on the market segment they are targeting, because that is ultimately the topic we're talking about. Like, know your customers, target your customers, and go for it. The processing of the sewage waste is in a few steps. So non-sewage water will be recycled, and absolutely nothing enters the sea. And for me, this was so important to know. 100% of the waste is recycled there. They also contracted engineers to do a custom-built wastewater treatment plan, and the water is cleaned in several stages, and to the stage of gray water, that water will be repurposed in toilets and in irrigation. To be honest, from my European background, that really appeals to me, because in Europe they have been doing that for years out of ecology perspective. So the houses, lots of houses in Europe, the drain pipe for rainwater leads to a basin, and the basin collects all the rainwater, and then the rainwater is used to irrigate the garden or to use in the toilet. So that is really something that appeal to eco-conscious visitors from abroad. The organic waste, for example, the scraps and bits and pieces of vegetables, of fruits, they're used in the kitchen for breakfast, dinner, lunch. They go into a composting system. Again, that appeals really to foreign visitors. Like, we at home in Belgium, we had a compost area where all the scraps went to, so that is something that really appeals. And afterwards, it's used in gardens as a fertilizer, which is a bit the circle of life, and nothing is really wasted. The food is locally produced and locally sourced. Of course, some ingredients that are exclusive or not in season are imported, but they try to focus on as much as possible local and seasonal. And this also caters to the needs of a very modern audience that is going back to basics, that is wanting to reconnect again with all the cycles of life. So what I've seen is, for example, my Belgian grandmother, she came from a farmer's family and she knew everything about seasonal harvesting and what crops were, and with the birds fly in that direction. Spring is coming, so you have to sow this type of things. And so that mindset, it went a bit to waste after the World War. And then you had the boom in the 60s and the 70s, and people started to forget all that wisdom. And then afterwards, in the years 2000, all that knowledge has been come up again. And so what my advice is to nations or countries or islands that still have this type of traditions or behavior, to really preserve that, because this is really the future and people are really looking more and more deeper into this, since it appeals to an inner need to not overburden the planet with so many things that are already going on. So some ingredients are important, but all seafood for sure is fresh and locally sourced, which is so important since the international fisheries are very demanding from marine resources. The vocational training the chefs, for example, get is also very much directed towards seasonal cooking and learning the techniques. So I was very interested in this, and they focus on fusion, but also on the Khmer, the local Khmer cuisine, which I would for sure want to try. The fishermen adopted sustainable fishing methods. So that's part of the corporate social responsibility approach the Songsa private island adopted to teach these sustainable fishing methods to preserve the amount of fish. The herbs and the vegetables come from an in-house garden, and they are curated and maintained by the chefs, so they saw as well the herbs that are needed, for example, in the bar for garnishing, and for the other types of dishes in the kitchen. Conclusion to wrap this case study up. The sustainability in the hospitality business requires a 36-degree approach, meaning a holistic approach that is not only targeted at, for example, cooking seasonal, but really think it through, like how can this impact the community for the best? Can we adapt vocational training to this for local craftsmen, handyman, staff, but also art and the materials that are used, and how waste is handled, how sewage is handled. Every single aspect of life in and around the hotel has been thought through in this holistic approach, which is the way to go if you want to really take this to the next level. And the core vision of what they wanted to achieve with this private island as a spot for visitors to come and recharge and to replenish themselves away from the world, since it's so remote, is present in every single process of the resort's functioning. And that's why this really works, because target customers, and I really see myself as a target customer here, feel really attracted to this, because they find so much meaning in all these tiny single details that it makes it very easy to fall in love with this. And that is what I said in the previous course module, that ultimately it's about human interaction and like satisfying a primal need and attaching to emotions, and like the customer relationship, like how you acquire your customer is a bit like dating. It is about a give and take, but it's also about a seduction. And here this is very much present, and I must say it really works. So this was the first case study. Let's take a break and then we will continue with the Taiwan examples.